What's up, family? I'm back again. Got another hot topic we covering tonight. Um, like I always say it too. I always be like, yeah, I'm gonna make this quick. I'm gonna try to make it quick, but you know how that be when you get caught up in the moment. So, first I want to say, what's up, everybody that's tuning in or about to tune in, or if you catch this live after it's already aired, it's up to you still. You know what I'm saying? I hope you guys are having a good night or day wherever you at. Y'all see that temperature though? I told you in one of my other videos, I said it's gonna start off cold. It's gonna be real cold, and then it's gonna. I said probably like a week or two, it's gonna be back hot or warmer, and you see it's doing that. So that El Nino. But as you can see, the topic today we're gonna talk about is will oil make us go extinct? Okay, so this subject is kind of like it's a deep subject. Okay, I'm kind of still understanding it, so I might have a little slip ups too when I'm going through it. But I'm gonna try to cover it as best as I can. And if y'all feel like I'm messing up some type of way or misinforming some type of way, just let me know in the comments or you know just let me know. So I'm gonna breeze through it. You know me, I like to just get straight to it. No time wasted. So first, let me go. Uh, I be doing it wrong. Hold up, I'm messing up. There we go. Okay, we're going to start with the Earth's atmosphere. You know, I like to start from the top of the charts, and I try to work my way down to slowly to it. You know, I don't really like how. Let me change that. Hold on. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Wait a minute. Yeah, let me change that layout. Okay. So you know me, I like to start from the top of the situation. I like to cover everything around the situation and then talk about the situation. So that's what I'm doing here. So the main discussion is about will we go extinct by oil. But first I want to talk about the atmosphere and the layers of Earth. So we got to understand in that first. So we're going to start at the bottom. We're going to start at the troposphere. So the troposphere is where we live at. Okay. So in the troposphere, this is what you can say is the not the coolest of the all the atmospheres, but it gets hit with the least amount of solar radiation. The troposphere where we're at. Okay, so the way it works is the solar rays come through. Okay, so see this picture here. The picture of the sunbeam coming all the way down from the exosphere all the way down to the troposphere, right? So what it does is when the leftover radiation that does make it down to us, it hits the ground and goes in the earth. And once the earth heats up to a certain amount, it pushes it back out. It basically is like heating up a pot of water or something. So it starts in the core of the earth and then pushes it all back out to make everything else around it warm too as well. So if we just had a troposphere, we would have heat build up in the core of the earth and it would just spread like wildfire and the heat would be everywhere pretty much going out to outer space. But we have layers. So the troposphere basically heats up in the ground of the earth and it pushes it back out. So when this happens, the particles is basically like um they get heated up so they swell up, they get more volume but lose density, right? So it's like if you take a ball, say you take a ball and you heat it up and it swell like a balloon. So you got a small balloon, it's regular temperature. You blow air in it, your breath like your breath hot, like you got some hot breath. You blow your air in it, and the balloon expands and gets wider, but it's lighter in density because it's more expanded with the same particle, which is the same um I guess you could say the same balloon. It's the same material of balloon, but it's just expanded with heat. So what this does is it makes it travel and go to the next particle that's next to it to heat that up as well to exchange temperature. So once a certain amount of particles heat up, they'll all expand and they'll just rise up. So in the troposphere, when it does this, it rises up to heat up the everything around it. And once it goes up to the tropopause, I guess you could say it is, it cools up. So the more that it goes up in the air, the more temperature it loses. So it's like it starts at the ground earth heats up, and then it starts shooting the particles to heat up, and then it goes into the air and hits those particles, and then from the air so forth, it keeps rising up in the air. So once it heats to the tropopause, it cools off because it's basically, once you hit the ozone in the stratosphere layer, it's matching its temperature of heat. So once it does that, the particles no longer go upwards, they start going sideways and to left or right. So when it does that, it cools down from traveling down, and then it goes back down towards Earth, cool. But like I said, the Earth is heating up as you constantly bring solar radiation in. So it's just a complete cycle. It cools off going down, going up, then it comes down and it heats back up. So when this ozone layer is right here, it's basically, when it does that cooling and repeating this process, it never interferes with what the stratosphere has going on. So when you see the stratosphere, it basically is already hot, right? The stratosphere holds it absorbs more radiation. So the ozone absorbs a lot of radiation. The stratosphere does as well. And this is where a lot of like jets, airplanes, of course, they can't travel through the troposphere. So it's like they basically travel through clouds and bad weather and tough weather and stuff like that. Jets, on the other hand, they can fly over the clouds. So they travel more in the stratosphere because you don't have to worry about bad weather, or not bad weather, but you don't have to worry about weather and things like that of that nature. But it's a little bit warmer, right? So it's like a cycle. You got the troposphere where it's kind of cool. The more it goes up higher, the cooler it gets. Then you hit the ozone layer, where it's like the split of the next layer, where the ozone layer takes in a lot of radiation and is able to absorb it. So the stratosphere also has a lot of warm radiation too as well. So then you take it over to the mesosphere, where it gets back kind of cool. Now in the mesosphere, it's not that much it's not that many gas particles that's in it. So it's kind of not as flowing with gas particles as much as the stratosphere and troposphere, but it has a nice amount and it cools off. And basically, when the solar radiation hits into the mesosphere, it's more so stagnant, like in the area, to where it kind of takes on the debris and slows it down from being that extringent before it goes into the stratosphere and troposphere. So this is good for like when meteors about to hit the earth and stuff like that. It'll take most of the comet or the meteors away, and then some of the straggle pieces make its way through the stratosphere. So that's good for the mesosphere. So then you keep going up, you have and mind you, after I tell you the overall, I'll read the article, but you have the mesopause, where it's another break. Like each one has a break line through it. So the mesosphere has a mesopause. So then after that, you have the thermosphere, where it's, I guess you could say, the hottest. It takes in the most solar radiation, but it's stagnant up there as well. So this is where they fly. They see the satellite right there. This is where they try to fly satellites at. Eventually it'll probably crash or something like that. But they try to fly their satellites in this area of the thermosphere. And then you go to the thermopause, where it's another section cutting off. And then the exosphere, where it's kind of like the start of space, you would call it. You know what I mean? Where they say they travel out of space, but it's like it could be a dome. It's like they probably don't travel past the exosphere, to be honest with you. But you have the exosphere, where it's the outermost layer of the atmosphere, and the particles are more spaced out, so they don't even act like particles anymore. Like the hydrogen atom hydrogen particles and things of that nature. They're more spaced out, so they don't really come into contact with each other a lot. So it's harder for it to act like natural gases usually act. Okay. So I'm gonna go down, read the article. I'm just giving you my overall so you can hear, now I'll give you what they have to say line for line. So we're gonna run through it. Troposphere starts at the ground level and extends up about 10 kilometers. So other thing I wanted to tell you what the troposphere is, it's not leveled. So some parts of the earth, the troposphere is tall, and some parts it's more narrow because the areas in which the particles heat up more, and it's more what they call I think it's Haley cell or something like that. And it's a cycle. I told you the more it goes up, the cooler it gets, and then it cycles back down to warm up when it comes back to the earth. The more that it happens around the equator, the taller the troposphere, and around the colder regions of the planet, the troposphere is more so smaller. It's a thinner line. But I'm gonna keep reading. So when moving upward through the troposphere, the temperature steadily decreases. This is why high points like mountaintops have snow on them. Okay. The troposphere contains almost all of the water vapor in our atmosphere. This means that clouds and weather exist only in the troposphere. So remember, I was telling you when these particles heat up and they go upwards and they get more cooler that they go. Think about it like when you take a shower, right? You know what I'm saying, you get that nice little hot water before you wash your tail, you know what I'm saying? You got the steam coming up in the bathroom, and the little water might drip on this, and depending on how long you run the hot water, the little water might drip on the top of the thing, hit you in the head, and you look up like, oh damn, I've been here cooking for real. I ain't been washing, I've been cooking. So that moisture is basically like how a cloud is, how a cloud forms. So when the particles come up in the air, it's like humidity, right? You can't see humidity, but it is water vapor. When clouds form, it's from dust particles, and I believe they say salt particles in the air. And what the water vapor is the particles from that heated up from the earth and cooled off going upwards. They cling on to this dust and this salt in the air, and they form what you would call clouds, right? So it's everywhere. Water vapor is pretty much everywhere, but it's when it builds up to a certain amount. It's like a lot, right? But when it builds up, then that's when it forms to what you would call a cloud. So that's where you would get like a knockoff type of water cluster, I guess you could say. So we keep going. At the top of the troposphere, we reach a section called the tropopause, which I told you before, the boundary between the troposphere and the next layer. In the tropopause, the temperature finally stops decreasing at around -60 Fahrenheit and remains fairly steady before beginning to increase as we enter the next layer, the stratosphere. Okay. So going into the stratosphere begins where the troposphere ends and extends to about 50 kilometers above Earth. Moving up through the stratosphere, the temperature now increases instead of decreasing. It doesn't get very hot though. Like I told you before, it just absorbs more energy from the solar radiation. And the temperature stops increasing right before we get above the freezing point, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Although too high for most commercial airplanes, large jets may fly in the stratosphere to avoid. Okay, I told you guys that already. Keep going. The stratosphere is relatively calm because it is already cool on the bottom and warm on the top. So there isn't a lot of convectional air movement. Unfortunately, this is also why pollutants released in the atmosphere stay in the almost stagnant stratosphere for long periods of time. So a lot of those pollutants that you guys say chemtrails and stuff like that, that's where it lies at and stays the longest. As you can see, this long smoke cloud around here. And this is even worse because the stratosphere is where our ozone layer is located. The ozone layer is where it protects us from the sun's harmful rays. Okay. It's funny. I wasn't even reading that, but I basically said it. So in the stratosphere, you have what you call O3, which is oxide 3. And in the troposphere, you have oxide 2, right? That's what we use down here to breathe and etc. So oxide 3 absorbs more radiation from the sun. So basically, when the sun hits through the stratosphere, let me go up. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. So when the sun hits the stratosphere, right, it's oxide 3. So it basically hits an oxide 3 particle, splits it into two, right? So when it splits the oxide 3 into two, you think it's oxide 3. So it's three of them. You have two that's still partially together, and you have one that's floating by itself. Well, that one goes some to another two and reconnects, right? So basically the sun splits it and then it reconnects to make two, to make to make three again. So once it does that, it hits the troposphere is only two. Okay. So two come together and they stay together. So the stratosphere, that's how it absorbs most of the solar radiation, is it keeps getting hit. The oxide 3 keeps getting hit, then it splits into two, and then they reconnect, and then they get hit again and split again, and it just keep going so forth to, give you more of a protection from the radiation, right? Keep going. So we're going into the mesosphere. So the mesosphere exists from about 50 kilometers to about 85 above Earth. Moving upwards through the mesosphere, the temperature once again decreases. Not much is known about the mesosphere. So you see each layer is like one takes one, then it's yin, then it's yang, then it's yang, then it's yang. So it starts off cool, then it gets to hot, then it gets to cool, then it gets to hot, and so forth until it's in what you would call outer space. So moving upward through the mesosphere, the temperature once again decreases. Not much is known about the mesosphere because it is too high for an aircraft or even weather balloons to reach. So too high for aircraft or weather balloons to reach, but you guys trace all around. Okay. Even satellites can't give us a lot of information because they orbit the Earth above the mesosphere and cannot directly measure the conditions within this mysterious layer. Most meteors, okay, I told you guys about the meteors. So let's go to the thermosphere. The thermosphere extends about 90 kilometers above Earth. Out, what you would call outer space starts, like I said, in this layer at an altitude of 100 kilometers. It will only take about an hour of driving at highway speed to reach this point of okay, whatever. The thermosphere is very hot during the day, but cold at night because the air density is so low up there that most of the thermosphere is technically considered a part of space. When the sun is particularly active, the thermosphere puffs up to absorb more X-ray and UV radiation. Due to the extreme temperatures, it would be difficult to allow humans to spend any time in the thermosphere. However, this is where most satellites orbit Earth. The satellites are used for a variety of purposes, including sending global positioning data, radio and TV signals, and even weather measurements back to Earth. So you see they put a lot of their equipment up there. So when the radiation intensifies, this is stuff that's getting knocked out. Okay, starting in what you would call the thermosphere. All their equipment will be knocked down out of the thermosphere and falling down, which you would probably see a lot of. So the thermosphere is also home to the auroras, Earth's northern and southern lights. These lights are produced when charged particles from space collide with molecules and atoms. This sends the particles into a higher energy state, and then that extra energy is emitted as the light we see. Okay, so we got that covered. The exosphere is our final atmospheric layer. Here is the air is so thin that it nearly is identical to the conditions in outer space. The bottom of the exosphere is called the thermopause or exobase. Okay, we got that. There's not a lot happening in this layer. Even the ISS orbits below this exosphere. Gas particles are spread so far apart that they rarely even collide, like I said already, instead spending their time floating aimlessly and undisturbed. The top of the exosphere is difficult to pinpoint because it gradually fades into outer space. Some scientists don't even think the exosphere is actually a part of our atmosphere and that the thermosphere should be the top layer. Okay, so we got that. That's the atmosphere of the Earth. So now we're going to take a whole flip-flop and we're going to go to inside the Earth. And all this is going to connect at the end. I'm going to connect everything at the end so you can get a better understanding. So, the, so for the Earth's layers, right? We're up here at the top of the crust. So you got the crust. We're over top of this. You have the lithosphere, which is part of the crust, and that what's that? Asthenosphere, which is part of the crust also. So we're on the top. You have the lithosphere. Under it is like hot, right? It's hot layers. It's hot enough to melt rocks, right? It's mostly made of solid rocks. Then the asthenosphere, which is part of the Earth's crust and top of the mantle, right, is liquid rock. Okay, it's like the same material, but it's just liquefied from the heat intensifying and melting it. Okay, and this is what basically feeds the lithosphere to get more rock formations happening in it. Okay, the mantle is the largest part of the Earth's core. Okay, you see the mantle right there? That's all basically all three of these pretty much. This is the thickest part of the Earth's core, and it makes up probably like I think it's 85% of the volume of Earth. So it gets real hot. It's what you would call magma. Okay, this is all liquid. Okay, then you get down to the outer core, which is liquid as well, and it's piping hot liquid. It's hot as the sun, right? It's straight liquid. And then once you get to the inner core, it's solid, right? It's not really solid, but we'll say it's solid, right? It's the same elements where you would get to the metals, right? So you would get up here is rocks, okay. The mantle is the magma. Then the outer and inner core is made of iron and nickel, I believe. Okay, so the reason I said this is solid but not really is because it's made of the same liquid as the outer core, but once you pile layers of the Earth's core on top of it, then it starts to solidify. Okay, they get so pushed and jam packed together that it makes it into a solid, right? So this is how you protect yourself. The outer core actually deflects a lot of the solar radiation from hitting the Earth's inner core to make it liquefy and basically make the planet lose all its heat. It put because if it was liquid down here too, it would just push all the heat back out. Like I told you, how it disperses back out. It would disperse all the way from our core, which will make our Earth basically cool off and turn into a cold planet. Frozen, which is basically lifeless. So this liquid is protecting it. It deflects it. Some might go through, but not a lot. It deflects it. In the let's see. I want to go down. Okay, so right here. The mantle, which contains more iron, magnesium, and calcium than the crust, is hotter and denser because temperature and pressure inside the earth increase with depth. Like I said, as a comparison, the mantle might be thought of as a white of the boiled egg. At the center of the earth lies the core, which is nearly twice as dense as the mantle because its composition is metallic, iron and nickel. Okay. So we basically got that understood. So that's basically pretty much that you have to really know. So you start at the top. We're over top of the Earth's crust. Then once you go in the crust, it's hot rocks basically. And then once you go in the second layer of the crust is the asthenosphere. And the asthenosphere and the lithosphere constantly are shifting. These are like plates in the earth. So this is where they say the plates shift all the time. They're like, yeah, the plates shift and the plates shift. It's just when it shifts a little too hard, that's when they call it an earthquake. You know what I mean? And when the volcanoes erupt and it shoots that hot lava that you see out of it, it's coming from the mantle, which is hot magma. Okay. So basically that is that. We got that understood. So now we're going to go into petroleum. Like I said, it's always going to come together. It's all going to come together. So petroleum, let's see what petroleum is, or what you would call oil. Petroleum, also called crude oil, is a fossil fuel like coal and natural gas. Petroleum was formed from the remains of ancient marine organisms such as plants, algae, and bacteria. Okay, so they're basically using dead, or not dead, but the remains, which is basically the bodies of these wildlife creatures that lived in the ocean, right? They're using that. Over millions of years of intense heat and pressure, these organic remains transformed into carbon-rich substances we rely on as raw materials for fuel in a wide variety of products. So they basically taken the bodies of these old materials, plants, algae, bacteria, and once it goes down, I just showed you the Earth's core, right? To show you that once you go deeper in the Earth's core, the pressure intensifies. So that's what makes it more like a liquid substance, and it heats it up, right? So this bacteria, they're basically waiting for these plants, algae, and bacteria to die off, and they wait over a million freaking years for it to turn into a compound that they can use as a raw material for fuel, right? So let's go down a little more. That's that. Okay. Crude oil is usually black or dark brown, but can also be yellowish, reddish, tan, or even greenish. Okay. Variations in color indicate the distinct chemical composition of different supplies of crude oil. Petroleum that has few metals or sulfur, for instance, tends to be lighter. Okay. And that all depends on where you basically are getting this material from. Okay. Wherever you're getting this oil from, that's going to determine how the substance comes out. Okay. So I just wanted to give you that brief definition of oil, right? So we know oil is plants, algae, and bacteria that bodies passed for over millions of years ago, fell deeper and deeper in the Earth's crust. Well, yeah, in the Earth's crust, and it changed formation from the heat and the pressure of the Earth's layers on top of it, right? So let me actually, I want to show you guys that. So boom, you see that? I forgot. I forgot. My bad, man. I'm new to this. Okay, I forgot to switch over the screen, but you can see it right here. Okay, it's basically the same thing I was reading. You can check this articles out yourself. Okay. I don't know if I showed you guys this tab, so let me switch over so you can see this tab. This is the Earth's core. Okay. You see, you got solid from the inner core, liquid the outer core. You have the mantle, and then you have the Earth's crust, which is made of the asthenosphere and the lithosphere. Okay. So let's go over. Now, since we got that figured out, I want to tell you guys oil, right? So we just figured out what oil is. Now, where is oil located? Oil is formed deep inside the Earth's crust below the oceans due to the immense pressure of the overlying layers and high temperatures from the mantle. Generally, this formation takes place in the lower mantle, and the oil is found at the upper mantle. So once it gets to a certain depth in the mantle, I just showed you the Earth's core, right? I'm gonna show you once again because you know. So the mantle is right here. Okay. They said I told you these are plants and bacteria that basically died and decomposed and went down at the bottom of the ocean and then kept further making their way down, right? So it's starting up here, it's going down, it's getting pushed down by the layers, getting more heat and et cetera formed on it. So once it goes down here, it starts heating up and melting up, and then it pushes up here, and this is where the oil is basically taken from, right here in this layer, the dark orange layer. Okay, so we figured that out. So now I want to go into the next subject. What is oil made out of? Crude oil is composed of hydrocarbons, which are mainly hydrogen and carbon. Okay, hydrogen 13% by weight, and carbon 85%, about 85%. So it's basically mostly carbon, right? And I'm telling you this all right. So We know where it's located at, right? It's located at the upper mantle of the Earth's layers. Okay. It's made out of plants and bacteria that decompose in the sunlight. They absorb sunlight, right? And they eventually over time change formation into a different fossil fuel, a fossil fuel period, to where they can be used, right? So now we're going into what it's made out of, and it's made out of hydrogen and carbon, mostly carbon, right? So now we figured all that out. Now I want to switch over to what carbon is, okay? Carbon is in carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas that traps heat close to the earth. It helps Earth hold some of the heat it receives from the sun so it doesn't all escape back into space. But CO2 is only good up to a point. Beyond that point, Earth's temperatures warm up too much. Okay? So, boom, right there. We figured out where oil is, we figured out where it's located at, and we figured out the effects that the compound that is made out of has. It traps heat close to Earth. Okay, so we figured that out. Now this is why I say I want to connect everything to where you understand everything. So now we're gonna go back to the troposphere, where I told you the troposphere is where particles, the solar radiation that makes it through down to where we're at, right, to ground level, I guess you would say. It hits the ground level and then shoots back up once it's heated up. All the layers of the Earth shoot this heat back up, okay? And once it shoots it back up, then that's when the particles basically reach around and they're trying to grab everything next to it to heat that up as well. So once it heats up and it swells up to a certain amount, then it loses density and it gains volume and it rises. So once it rises, it basically done heated everything up to the level that it is. So then it starts just rising. Once it rises and goes to the top, it eventually cools off and comes back down and heat up again. So you got to think, right? If you're taking carbon, which holds heat, right? Carbon holds heat close to the earth and it doesn't let it escape as fast. So the process of it is going up, cooling off, coming back down, heating up to keep Earth at a stagnant radiation level and a heating level, right? So this carbon is holding in this heat. So when that particle goes up to cool off and come back, it's not cooling off. It's not getting let go. It's holding to the ground level for longer. It's not just rising up and going away. It's staying down here and it's swelling up in volume and heating up the planet, well, heating up the ground level of what you would call the troposphere, and it's heating it up and making it hold heat more intense and for longer periods of time than it's normally done. Okay, so this is how you would have what you would call quote unquote global warming. Okay, this carbon is holding on to this planet. Now all of a sudden we have global heating everywhere, right? I told you before that El Nino is happening, right? You have global warming going around. You have places where it's not normally hot, burning up. You have the heat lasting way longer. Like today, it was just 60 some degrees. Okay. Probably two weeks ago, it was like 80 degrees. Okay. You have a lot of it heating up, holding on to this heat. This heat is causing a lot of damage. Okay. This excess heat is causing a lot of damage to where now it's harder to grow crops. I'll cover that in another video. It's harder to grow crops now because it's way hotter than it used to be. It's harder for certain cells to live in because they're not suited to even live in this environment, let alone if it was to heat up to its max potential. Okay. And it's allowing solar radiation to pile up more and more on the ground level where we all walk around at. And this atmosphere was put here to, I doubt it was put here for our safety, but we could say for everyone's safety, right? This atmosphere was put here to protect solar radiation from booming and pounding on the troposphere ground level where we walk at. So if this heat is holding on here, all this solar radiation that's making it through, it's not a lot making it through when the atmosphere is at its best, but it's hitting and it's making it through. And then we still have old heat still held from all this excess carbon down here in this troposphere to where now it's not escaping as fast. So now it's just building up, more heat building up. And it's like it's already building up, holding on the heat, and then it's bringing some more in. So now what this does is this also has a reverse effect on the atmosphere as well as the layers. Because now the layers are heating up more too. They don't have as much heat leaving out. It's already hot enough. Okay. The Earth's outer core and inner core is hot as the sun. It reaches almost up to 9,000 degrees. Okay. So now that all this heat is trapped in on this planet, we're burning, we will be what you quote unquote call burning up. Okay. All this oil that there's sucking out of the planet, we're over here burning up. It's not going anywhere. I also want to show you what it looks like. I got another tab. Okay, so boom, this is getting more into depth of what it's looked like when they taking this oil from the planet, right? They have an oil well on the dry land and they have an oil well in the sea. They can take it from either or depending on where it's located at. So they're digging all the way in to close, they're digging past the sea levels, right? They're going past the lithosphere and the asthenosphere, and they're going all the way to the top of the mantle, right? They're sucking this oil up from the upper mantle and bringing it back up. So on top of this carbon buildup from us using this oil, we use oil in cars, we use oil for our houses, for heating certain electricity. We use this oil. We use it in products that we use. Okay, we use oil for a lot of things. So on top of us using this oil and this carbon building up, we're drilling holes in the planet. Okay, you drill holes in the planet, you think it's just going, the planet just going, just, oh yeah, you joked a hole in me, I'm good though, I'm nothing's bad gonna happen from that. No, you drilling holes in the planet is causing excess pressure to escape from through these holes where these whales are digging in. So now on top of just the regular carbon that you done dug up out the ground and started using and burning, you have some more escaping out of the Earth's layers coming up to the troposphere where we live and walk amongst each other at. Okay. So this in turn has bad outcomes as well. Okay. So now if you was to get a little wildfire, right? You know, you have a little wildfire and it just burned out in a couple of days. Now, them wildfires is running crazy. You know what I'm saying? They got excess carbon buildup. They got the holes in the Earth's layer open. So now it's excess gases and oils coming out of these holes that they're drilling in. And now you're polluting the sea, right? You're drilling holes to get this oil. A lot of this oil is coming back up and seeping into the sea. Now it's polluting the sea. Now you drilling holes in the land, it's coming back up and it's polluting the land. The carbon from in the air is polluting the land. The carbon that's seeping through where you're drilling at is polluting the sea. And then you have a nerd that be dumping oil back in the water. Like, come on now. You already got enough oil in the water that's not supposed to be there. If oil was supposed to be there, it will form in the ocean. It will form on top of the land. This oil isn't supposed to be used at all, but where it's down deep in the crevices of the earth, down in the upper mantle. And the upper mantle is magma. I told you the mantle is magma. Magma is the same thing that shoots out of a volcano. So you think that lava that comes out of the volcano, that is real hot. Okay. Let it touch you. You done just from touching, you done from just being too close to it. So imagine how hot it is down there where the oil is at. Okay, it's extremely hot. Okay, you bringing all this up, all these pollutions are coming up from it. Okay, you bringing excess metals and gases and rocks that's supposed to be under the Earth's layers, and it's now up above Earth's layers in the troposphere, causing more pollution. So now you're taking down more of the atmosphere. Okay. Now this excess buildup right here is causing a reverse effect in how the layers operate in the atmosphere. Because I told you it's cool, hot, cool, hot, cool. Okay. Cool in the troposphere. Cool in the troposphere, warmer in the stratosphere, cooling the mesosphere, warming the thermosphere, and so forth. All this excess heat building up in the troposphere is now up in the temperatures. So even though, yeah, it's probably cooler in the troposphere and hotter in the stratosphere, now it's intensified. Now this heat that the carbon done trapped on here and the solar radiation that trapped on here, it done heated it up to a certain level. Now the stratosphere is heated up just as much. The mesosphere is heating up just as much. The thermosphere is heating up just as much. It's like a cycle. It's like a pyramid. It's going up. It's heating up way more and more each layer of the atmosphere. Now, I didn't go as far as to do the research as to the heating up of the atmosphere layers, but I can just only guess that it'll eventually dissipate. Okay, it'll eventually make holes like you see in the ozone layer. They say it's holes in the ozone layer because this heat, intense heat in this troposphere that's not supposed to be here is pushing these particles that's supposed to just go in a nice rotation. They're supposed to cool off, come back down, heat up, cool off, come back down, heat up. Now they just heat. They just hot, hot, hot. They pushing the ozone layer up more because the particles are trying to float up to escape. It's more volume in the air, making it more less room for the density to thrive in. There's too much volume in this area. Okay. So now it's pushing up on the ozone layer, which makes holes in the ozone layer. So now the holes in the ozone layer is open. Now the heat is escaping out the troposphere into the stratosphere. Then heat, so forth, keeps traveling upwards and upwards. So eventually, all the atmosphere is going to be gone. So if your atmosphere is gone, that's that solar radiation comes on in way more easier, and the planet burns. It heats up to beyond temperatures that we can withstand. Right? We can withstand a high amount of temperature as indigenous, but the magnitude that it would do it at, it's like we'll probably still be here and live, but we would not be in the same formation that we are right now. It'll be a whole different formation. We'll adapt in a whole nother way. And once the Earth's core heats up to a certain amount, then it too will let off, boom, all the heat. When it lets off all that heat, it starts cooling off. It's getting all that heat off its chest. Okay. So basically, that's what I'm getting at when I'm saying, will using oil make us go extinct? Because we're using the amount of oil. Let me look up right quick. I'm gonna show you guys. Let's look it up. So let's say how much oil does this? Yeah, let's say that does the U.S. use per day? Let's just say the U.S. alone. The oil's consumption in the U.S., right, is at 19,687,287 barrels per day. Oil imports, 7,850,000 imports of barrels per day. Exporting 591,000. They ain't getting away nowhere near as much oil that they getting in. And it's the first in the world of ranking. We're using the most oil. We have the most carbon buildup out of every other place in the world, right? But these other countries like Israel and, well, let's just say the Middle East and Africa and it's another place. I guess you could say Mexico. These places that's grabbing oil up, their environment is crashing because they're the ones digging into the ground the most to grab this oil to give to the U.S. to use, or to give to whatever place like China or something to use. Right? That's why their places that they live at is becoming non-livable. Okay, because it's like you're taking out this substance that's not supposed to be taken out of where you live at, and you expect your place where you live at to still thrive in life. No, you're literally taking the life out of your country to give it to another country so they could thrive with your same substance while y'all just hurt over it. And y'all get what, a little bit of riches, some food, and a little bit of trade. That is not worth it. Your whole country just being done. And on top of that, it don't stop at just a country. You think just because Middle East extracts all the oil and they eventually go to where it's inhabitable, that it's just going to stay there? No, it's going to keep traveling. Sorry, it's like a fruit fly flying around. We cut so much fruit up, these nets just be flying around. We got fly traps, catch about 60 of them. But no, it's not going to just stay over there. It's going to keep traveling around. Like I said, these particles heat up and they travel to heat up the next particle next to it. And then the next one heat up the next one. The heck, you don't boil up a pot of water. You don't boil up a jacuzzi. You don't boil up nothing. And it just heats up one side of the pot and the other side is just stay cool. Like, nah, that's over there. They heat it up. No, it heats the whole thing up. So we're going to heat the whole globe up eventually. That's why they're trying to rush to say they're trying to be net zero with oil usage. They're trying to convert over to electricity and water and all this only, right? But I want to tell you, on top of this carbon coming up and toxifying our environment on the troposphere, what's the one thing that uses carbon? Trees. They're chopping down all the trees, chopping down trees, making damn paper and all that, right? So the only thing that would take down some of this carbon to build up to where you won't have to worry about a global warming, you done chopped down and made some dollar bills and some notebooks out of it. So now these places where it's already hot, like Africa and places like that, where the carbon buildup is at, they're already a hot environment. They're close to the equator. It's already heated up, right? So you on top of that happening, they're sensitive to heat buildup already. They're already high. So anything else added would just burn them up too much, right? So on top of that, my bad guys. On top of that, you have trees being taken down in Africa, right? They're chopping trees down, they're chopping trees everywhere. They're just taking wildlife out. They'll take a rainforest out to try to grow stuff on it. You know what I mean? They just knocking down nature. And all this takes away carbon. It breathes in carbon. So now when you dig in the earth to grab this oil out, it ain't no trees to suck that excess carbon up. So that carbon is just building up and building up and building up. You think you just gonna build up excess carbon that holds heat and it's just gonna eventually just decide to cool off one day? No, it's gonna stay at the same temperature. So these people running around talking about, oh, yeah, we're gonna switch over this, we're gonna switch over to electricity, or yeah, the sun is intensifying. Yes, the sun is intensifying, right? But the sun is intensifying for two reasons. From the way that the planet is shifting, okay, and from what we're doing down here to allow more solar radiation to enter into the planet, which is going to cause the sun to feel super intensified to where you'll have the hottest year that you ever have every single year. From, let me see, I'm going to type this in. What, let's say the record for hottest year every year. So it says 2020 and 2016 were the hottest years on record, with the global temperatures around 1.25 Celsius above pre-industrial times. So basically, since 2016, they've been having the record of the hottest year all the way up till now. Earth's last 8 years were the hottest on record. Actually, it says since 2014, it's been the hottest on the record. Why? Because y'all not doing nothing to change it. Y'all say you want to change to all this, but yet you still buying into businesses to pull out more fossil fuels, burn more oil. You're not doing nothing to change it. It's nothing you really can do to change it besides give it all up. And they're not trying to do that. They still want their system to run. So basically, if US says, you know what, we're going to stop using oil, we're going to just convert over to renewable resources, right? That doesn't mean China is going to stop, Russia going to stop. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean none of them other places going to stop. They're going to keep doing their thing. They like, that's on you. And then now US feel like, oh man, we're falling all the way behind. We're losing in the economic battle. Man, we might as well just do it too, man. You can't beat them, join them. No, y'all can't beat them and join them. Y'all gonna all join to an early grave. So the things that's happening on this planet is showing you that you are digging your early grave. Okay, you guys are digging your early grave in there. You're not doing anything to change it. You're doing the same old, same old. So how is anything going to switch? How is anything going to be safe? How is anything going to change to better anything in the future if you're doing the same thing? And the same thing is something that's deadly. The more you use it, by the day, you seen by the day, it's over 1 million barrels per day being used. There's 365 days in the calendar. That's over 1 billion barrels, right? All that extra carbon building up, holding that heat into the earth's troposphere. All this heat not escaping, okay? It's staying right there. And then we're still getting every day. The sun is not going nowhere. The sun not going to say, oh, it's hot enough over there, I'm going to just go ahead, mind my business somewhere else. No, the sun is going to keep sending the same amount of heat, solar radiation to the planet that it does every day because it's supposed to, because it feels if you're living your natural way that you're supposed to live on this planet, right? You shouldn't be overheating. You shouldn't have any solar radiation issues. You shouldn't have cancer and all this happening because you're living by natural law. But if you're not living by natural law, you're doing something you're not supposed to, the same thing that's keeping you alive could kill you. Okay? So I just wanted to cover that right quick for you guys, man. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and appreciate you guys if you tune in after. This is a serious topic, man. Then the earth depends on it. The earth is going to live, it's going to rotate, it's going to adjust itself, and it's going to keep thriving. We, on the other hand, I don't know so much on that end, you know. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let me know your comments and what you think on the subject too, man. It's a big issue going on, and the more people that's aware of this, the more we can help to go to the next step to fix the situation. These people are saying by year 2050, and they're saying 2050. That doesn't mean they know it. It's just saying by the year 2050, but they're saying by the year 2050, everything that's life on the earth will be extinct if we keep going down the same rabbit hole, burning all this oil for no reason. Well, for petty reasons, for travel and petty stuff like that. It's not worth it when you think about it in a global type of situation. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Much love and much abundance to you guys, man. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Peace out.